Wow. Wow.
What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
Good to see you.
Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. We're in person, and god damn it, it feels good.
It's been a nice visit.
Yep.
I'm flying out in like 12 hours.
T-minus, something like that.
Yeah, it's been a nice visit. I'm excited to go back to the
Other side of the continent.
Yeah, I'll be back in a few months or something. Maybe, probably not.
Oh gosh. Nice. It flies by every time that you're here, man. And you know, I know that you stuff a lot into a little bit amount of time. It's like 10 days on paper is a lot of days, but you know, you have your roots here with family and friends. And so I know you've been busy. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know how you deal with all of the it's just like I feel like you're constantly like having fun, which is good, but like, man, like feels like I might want to take a deep breath or something. You know what I mean? Just have a day to be lazy and not even worry about talking to anyone. You know,
definitely is hard work having fun all the time. You know, it's not easy. Unless as my prior boss once told me, you know, lesser man would perish. But you know, I was able to get through these tough times of getting incredible food and drink.
Tough times.
And somehow we got here to day 10, and I'll be going back to have more fun in Anchorage, maybe, I think.
Any highlights of your trip? Maybe you want to tell the folks about? I don't know.
Definitely. The highlights yesterday was a big day. Yesterday we got 200 oysters and completely annihilated them, me and my brother and my dad.
What we do.
Destruction. Complete. Just not even, it wasn't even close.
It was so good, guys.
I don't know how I kept down 200 oysters. I mean, we probably each had 60 plus oysters, you know?
Yeah. So good. Yeah, it's funny. I like recently for my birthday, I like oysters. And for my birthday, I had a celebration with some friends and they like oysters, but they don't like oysters quite like my brother or my father. And so in the process of that, I also realized I have a friend who works at like a seafood place essentially that can kind of give me a nice little hookup. So it just really worked out and we had a good time. And so I'm glad that you, when I asked you what the highlight was, that was one of the first. I mean, obviously there's been tons of things, spending time with your mom and dad and your, like all the different people that we've seen. But
I believe they're also your mom and dad.
I guess I'm supposed to claim them. Is that how that works?
That works.
Okay.
Our parents.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's been a good trip and I'll be back in May or April or something. I don't know, but future Sean will figure that one out.
We'll figure it out, man.
And let's get to it.
Bro. There, this time of the year in the mushing world, man, it's just exciting, you know? So let's do a couple different things here. We've got our like rundown before our interview with Hunter Keefe. And you know,
I'm very hot.
Wow. If you're watching on YouTube, you could see a nice little what we're working with on Sean's body action here.
Now we're good. It's always hard to take off a sweatshirt and not like show a little nip.
100%.
You know, it's like I always take it off like, all right, I'm in a like nice place. I can't, you know, be showing my nipple to people. But it's just hard to take off a sweatshirt without a nip slip. And
if we can get at least 10 more follows from the nip slip via YouTube,
we'd appreciate the subscription.
That. We're not going to say it.
I didn't. You know. I think I hid it, but I think I hid the nip good enough.
I don't know. Tune in.
Sure I did.
Let us know what you find.
Yeah, see if you find something.
So, we'll talk a little bit about our interview with Hunter. That was a good time with him, but we'll get into some of the news and notes before we get to that. And unfortunately, there's been some sad news in the mushing world again. We had a passing with a gentleman by the name of Paul Gebhardt. And, you know, I'm not the not the one in the know here. So, Sean, can
I'm
you?
not necessarily the one in the know, but I do remember, when the first Iditarod that I followed was 2017, and Paul Gebhardt, had already had an illustrious career of several top 10 Iditarod finishes, and on several other races like the Cusco, he's been competitive in, and really good dog man. I think the Barrington twins learned a lot working for him at some point in their career or with him. And so, yeah, he's got a killer mustache. And he was, I never got to meet the guy. But it seems like he was kind of an integral part of the mushing community. And, I had heard that he was sick, was basically why he stopped participating in the race. And, I hadn't heard much news from his corner in a while. And I guess, yeah, he was, that's why. But yeah, you can see there's been a ton of support in social media, and certainly not on social media as well, for him and his family, and lots of sharing of stories of his mushing career, and he almost pulled off an Iditarod win, and he was definitely considered to be one of the greats. And yeah, rest in peace, man. That's we're really sorry to hear that, and I'm sure there's some people listening that are as well, and that have some good stories with Paul over the years, because he's ran this race for multiple decades.
Right. So yeah, just again, we aren't necessarily like the folks that want to talk about some of the things that have happened, or we don't know a lot of details of things when it comes to people's privacy and their deaths and such. But it's at least something worth mentioning, because again, it's part of the mushing community, and so wanted to at least bring that up. In other news, last weekend there was the rookie meeting for the Iditarod, and so I know that you had talked about maybe getting a chance to link up with a couple of them. Of course, it overlapped with this trip.
Totally think about that.
It happens. But nonetheless, I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about your experience with the rookie meetings. I know that your experience may not be the traditional that they had over the weekend.
Yeah, this is typically it's an in-person. And
by the way, on YouTube, Sun's Out, Guns Out. So if you want to see,
it's so hot in this room, dude. It's crazy.
Then you can also see the Sun's Out, Guns Out.
Oh yeah, I've talked about nipple sweats many times on this. Anyways, so the rookie meeting is something that happens in person. The year I ran it, the first time I was a last minute addition, so I didn't go to one at all. They gave me a kind of like a over the phone abbreviated rookie meeting, because I had a lot going on. And then the second year I got to do it online, because we were still not in the same room as people. This year, though, you got to fly in from wherever you are. A lot of people are running the Iditarod from lower 48 and from Canada. And so you got to come in, and they have mushers that talk to you. The lead veterinarian that's in charge of all the volunteer veterinarians is going to break down, some of the things that you're going to see with your dog team running 1,000-mile event. Because a lot of the rookies, that's their first time running that many miles in that short a time with their dog team. And so what you're, dealing with as far as dog care goes, and what to look for, we have so much data from the last 50 plus years of mushing, and so they do their best to share. You get a book that's super thick, full of all the things that you need to do to keep your dog team healthy out there and safe. And it's essential. They kind of instill they instill a little bit of fear of just like, hey, like you're responsible for 16 dogs, and don't take that responsibility lightly. And it's not like we do, but it just kind of, I remember sitting in that meeting just like, okay, yeah, this is super important, that I don't just take the book home and put it in the corner. So it's really good information to be studying and stuff to be keeping in mind as you reach the peak of your training. So great info, good to all the rookies to network and meet each other. And, that also symbolized the last day of signups for the regular price or whatever. It's $4,000 to get in if you sign up after the deadline, which is the day of the rookie meeting, I believe. I think it's a little bit more expensive. They do make special exceptions too, but that's typical. But usually pretty much 98% of the teams we're going to see in the race are signed up now. Yep. And we know what we're looking at. And we had a lot of, that happens every year, that during the sign up day, that last day where, you get that $4,000 price, you are going to see a lot of teams that waited to the last hour to sign up because they weren't sure if they wanted to do it, if they could afford to do it, if they had the flexibility to pull it off. So we had quite a list of names in the last week.
Yeah, sure. And well, there was one thing I did want to ask. Is there anything like memorable to you that stands out about the rookie meeting? Whether like something that was said that was like, wow, I'm glad I got that, or just, I don't know, like a funny moment or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, people tell you have all different kinds of mushers that are going to talk to you. I think, some 2 or 3 different mushers with 2 or 3 different kinds of ways of thinking. And, they talk about how important it is for you to take care of yourself so that you can then take care of your dogs. I remember Aaron Burtmeister mentioned that you should always, he's like, I never am not wearing gloves. I always have gloves on, because if I don't wear gloves, then my hands get all messed up from, getting whatever on your hands, or you get a lot of cuts out when you're out there, and whatever you can do to keep your hands healthy because you're doing all your dog care with them. That was an important thing. I remember, I think I told this on a podcast already, but Al Ishins was talking, and he's another Iditarod veteran. And we were doing it on the phone, and I was just straight off of a training run. So I was super tired. Like I pulled an all-nighter 2 times over, and I had everybody else didn't even have their camera on. They were just like listening, and they didn't have a record, but I had my face on there. So I'm like paying attention. They could see my face, and then I nodded off because I was tired. And Al, he's like, hey, Sean, maybe don't sleep during the rookie meeting. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, Al. And then I turned my camera off after that.
Impromptu.
I did not go back to sleep, though.
Lie.
Let the record show. I did not go back to sleep.
Whatever.
And yeah, I think it was really helpful to get all that information from the lead veterinarian. That is like things there's so many things I didn't know. And now, now I would think about those things, and I would talk to whoever my mentor was, like, hey, this is what, I've read. Now, what do you think in your experience? And talk to other mushers, and you can use that, because the veterinarian he's a super experienced with this race and looking at the dogs in this 1,000-mile event, but he's also never ran the Iditarod, right? So his information paired, you take that, and then you talk to people that have run the race and say, hey, what did you see, and how did you use this information? Right. Yep. So that's super helpful, because you're going into this race with some doubts about, like, for me, I was like, I'm scared, what are we getting into here?
Sure.
That's a pretty daunting task to go 1,000 miles across Alaska in the middle of winter. So there's, everybody might pretend to be confident, and there's probably some rookies that are feeling super prepared. But there's certainly going to be some rookies that are like, okay, what have I gotten myself into here?
Right.
Getting that information. Yeah. Super helpful.
Got you. So when you came out here, that was the cutoff for the price going from $4,000 to $8,000. And it was funny because I was re-recording our intro for the last episode. We had some difficulties, so I did it alone. And The three that had signed up as of the recording were Sean Williams, Josh McNeil, and Paige Drobny. So I wanted to start there and just kind of get your feedback on those three signups and just get any thoughts on any of those three.
Yeah, I mean, I think story of perseverance from Sean Williams, having signed up for the Iditarod in, I believe, 2021, and he his mom got sick and actually ended up passing away that week, and so he didn't run the race. And then 2022 he got really close to the end, and ran into a biblical storm that he was scared for his life on. And that it's not a rookie thing. Like that is that there's storms out there on the coast that are you just can't mush through, and he ended up in one of those, and had to end his race early. So now he's back for his third go at it. And I think, he's got a ton of experience, and I think the finish line, if I was a betting man, he'll be at the finish line this year. And I think he'll be everybody's going to be rooting for him. We've got Josh McNeil, who's now turned from this rookie sophomore. I think it's now his third Iditarod, and he's a veteran, and he's part of this next generation. He's got his own kennel, and it seems like he's really just got a good thing going with Crooked Creek Kennel, and he is hopefully a name that we're going to continue to see for many more years. And it's awesome to see him signing up again. And we'll see, I'm sure he's going to be improving.
Did you
on his, his goals are going to be to finish as high as he can. So we'll hope that happens for him.
So his rookie race is your rookie race, right?
Yeah,
in 21.
My second rookie race.
Your second rookie, right? So did you have any stories from the race or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember seeing him after the gorge, Dalzell Gorge, and he had a really rough go through there, and was I think he was questioning how are we going to do this thing, and then I was like, all right, well, at least I got him beat, is what I thought. And then I see him a few hundred miles later, he passes me, took some shorter rests or whatever. And I remember he passed me. And then of course, on the way back to the 2021 Gold Loop, right? On the way back, I see him. I'm like, dude, what happened to you were thinking maybe this wasn't your race or whatever. And he's like, kicked my butt. It wasn't even close. So that was kind of cool to see the turnaround there. And it talks about those highs and lows of mushing in general, but specifically during the race, you're going a lot of times you think your dog team's doing just fine. And then you think it's all unraveling because you're just so sleep deprived, depleted, low energy. You're out in the cold, and it's easy to find yourself in a tough place mentally. So it was cool to see him get over that hurdle, and his dogs get over that same hurdle as well. And I'm excited to see him back in here.
And then, the other one was Paige Drobny. So, good to see another perennial name. Looks like almost 10 Iditarods run there with Squid Acres. And, any other thoughts on Paige?
Yeah, I mean, she's certainly someone that could win this race, and she's finished 7th place a couple times. She last 2 races were 19th and 20th place. Probably my recollection was that she probably went for it and had to. The team wasn't for whatever reason going to be able to keep that top 10 pace, and so she just took some long rests and got them back up to speed, and still got to that finish line and made it a positive experience for her team. So we'll see. I know she's likely going to be trying to get back in that top 10 and maybe even higher than that, and someone to watch out for, competitively speaking.
Sure. So that was the 3 that had signed up, and then there was a nice 6-pack of people that signed up that the last day of the deadline. And so The first one I'll mention is Benjamin Good. I don't know if you know too much about him.
Yeah, I think I can't ever remember if it was the Copper Basin or if it was the Quest 300, but he won one of those that I was in, and I was just like, I didn't never heard of him, and then he goes out and wins the race. I think it was likely the Quest 300 in like 2020 maybe, and I was like, damn, Ben Good, this guy's not messing around. And so yeah, he's is this his rookie?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yep.
this is, you want to talk about a guy that's an experienced rookie. I remember before he signed up, Isaac Tieford having been 5 years mushing, working for Dallas, has run a bunch of races, seen a lot of stuff happen out there with his dogs. And, he seemed like someone that would be a top contender for rookie of the year. Well, sorry, buddy, Isaac. We got Ben Good in here now, dude. Isaac's like my homie, but Ben is a really talented musher. He's won a really difficult sled dog race or two, and this is gonna now. We got a bunch of rookies. Also, there's a bunch of other rookies, but he tops the list along with Isaac and a couple other names that I have to look at the list again, but for competitive
rookie of the year candidates
runs. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And so another sign up there was Jacob Whitcop. And so I don't know if you know too much about him or have any thoughts.
Yeah, Jacob is such a nice guy. Every time I see him, he's just in such a good mood, whether it's 30 below the Quest 300 or we see him at, the local watering hole getting a burger. He's got his own kennel that looks like so fun. Everyone that he is around him, his significant other, his dogs. I've seen these videos of him with all his dogs loose. They're all within 20 feet of him, wagging their tails and looks like a really well put together team of dogs that are very comfortable with each other. He's been a really competitive mid distance musher. This is his first 1,000-mile race, so you wonder, is he gonna be trying to continue that competitiveness or be erring on the side of caution to just get to the finish line? I'm not sure. About 1,000-mile race, but I think he's got a really good dog team to do it, and he's another guy I put on the top of the rookie list to compete for rookie of the year. But he may, I'm not sure what his goals are, right? So he might not be shooting for that, but I'm certain he's certainly capable, and so his dogs are as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing him at some point this winter and seeing what he has to say about it. Maybe we'll talk to him.
Nice. Yeah. Always love to talk to all the different folks. Next up, another addition. This is something this was a name that you had kind of been calling for a while, and that was Pete Kaiser. Sneaky Pete's back in. He couldn't turn it down, or do you just think like this is his move? Like, I'm gonna do it again. I'll sign up the deadline before it goes up in price.
Yeah, I think he's probably been more considering not racing in this year. Man, his resume on this race is insane. Look at how many top 10 finishes that is, man.
14 in a row. This will be 15 in a row for him.
Damn.
Top 10s in 1, 2.
He missed. No, he wasn't in 20. Oh no, yeah, he's been in
7, 8,
15 straight races.
8 out of 14 top 10s.
This guy is the example of consistency. Ever since his rookie race, he did scratch in 2021, but every other race besides his rookie race, he's top 14. So yeah, Pete Kaiser, we've heard of him. We know he's can win this thing. He's second place last year.
Yep. Well, yeah, we'll just have to see if he can, stay at the top of the leaderboard. Is kind of like, I assume that he will be a top 10. Will he be a top 5? Will he be maybe running some dogs from Richie as well? That'll be something to see, because Richie hasn't signed up, and it doesn't look like he is going to. So Next list on the list was Matt Failer. And for me, this was a name as someone who's a first time new dad. I was like, I was understanding of his intention before having said child to sit out this year's race. Because again, I just don't know how you do it all. But kudos to those who can, and props to him for being able to pull this off. Any thoughts on Matt Failer signing?
Yeah, Matt has a really good group of humans working with him and for him. A lot of experience and good attitudes. I've met the people that work there. Casey, can't remember her last name, but she ran the Iditarod with me in 2020, and super experienced. So she can be trusted to, help train the dogs. Because what was it that we talked to Aaron recently? That'll come out in a few weeks, but he was saying, you got to be able to let people help you. And so,
yep.
I think Matt's likely doing that. And it's really, we really didn't think he was going to be in the race this year, but I think he probably has just good enough help, really experienced dogs. And he's done this once or twice. So, and by once or twice, I mean like several times. So I think he's, he finished his best Iditarod of his entire career was last year, and excited to see if he can build on that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I bet you it's hard for him knowing how well he did last year. It's hard for him to maybe like know that, like this window is so small with the dogs, right? Mm-hmm. And so it makes sense, especially as you described that he has like a good team around him. It's probably one of the years where he's probably going to lean more heavily on them in the initial training stages, and then kind of like come in and swoop in and do the race kind of thing. So good for him. Glad to, and again, like when we first started doing these episodes for this upcoming season, initially there was not even 30 signups, I think 28 if I recall. So we're at 42. It feels good. And I remember putting a post on our social media asking if we're going to get over 40. And I think there were a lot of people that were hopefully saying yes, but there were a lot more, what felt like to me at least, more realistic no's. And so it just feels good to kind of see it have more entrants. And I just hope that continues to be the case. As we've gone down the hole together on these episodes, we're looking at some of the different guests' resumes, and we like go and click on one, and you'll see, oh man, there were 70 in this race. And since you and I have been, since you've been in mushing, and since I've been following it along with you, we've not seen that for the Iditarod at least. So nonetheless, I just like to see more names. And so I was glad to see a 6-pack sign up. The other two we need to mention are Calvin Doherty. And I know that you had your 2020 with Larry, his father. I don't know if you have any insight on Calvin though.
Yeah, I haven't met Calvin. I saw Larry a couple months ago, and he was letting me know about the idea that maybe his kid's going to be running this year. I knew he was qualified, and it was just a matter of if he's going to be able to take one of Mitch Seavey's dog teams out. We didn't know if maybe Mitch was going to sign up or not, but he's on the short list of mushers who said they were going to retire and have stayed retired. But I wouldn't be surprised if Mitch came back for another lap around the trail. But for now, that'll have to wait till next year. And Calvin, he's got probably a really good group of dogs. Got a really nice family. I know his parents. He's a young kid. He's got plenty of drive to work hard, and seems like he's learning a lot from Mitch and his dogs, and a lot of other great dog people. He knows Jim Lanier and Christian Turner and Gerhardt. So excited to see him. And he's got he made sure for his picture on the website that he looked like a musher proper,
You literally took the words
Yeah.
out of my mouth. I love his picture on the Iditarod website. I just the sweater and the look. It's just yeah. He looks and smells like a musher. I'm sure.
I'm sure he wears deodorant, dude.
What do you take a shower once every 10 days or whatever it is?
I don't know. You don't have to be a dirty musher. That's what I thought I had to be, and that's what I was. But look at Matt Baylor, dude. That guy cleans up nice.
He does clean up pretty well.
He's
That's
not
for
a dirty
sure.
musher.
No,
He's
no,
always
no.
clean shaven.
And then last but not least, we had another sign up, another name that's well known in the Iditarod community, and that would be Aaron Burmeister.
Yeah, pretty exciting to see Burmy back in it. And he's got into super experienced dog team. Eddie Burke's team from last year is likely going to be made up a lot of what Aaron will be taking down the trail this year. So super experienced dogs. And we'll see what Aaron does with them, and it'll be fun to he's going to be on that Iditarod Insider documentary at the end of it all. I don't even know Aaron. I've talked to him one time, but I feel like I know him because I've watched so many Iditarod documentaries, and he's always like the one. He's the most talkative of a lot of the top mushers, so he's the one that has like the most time getting interviewed on those end of the race documentaries, and he's always close to winning, has never quite pulled it off. And maybe I know that he's really, really driven to get that elusive Iditarod victory. I think it's gonna be really tough to get for anybody. And the first one's probably one of the hardest. I don't know. I wouldn't know. I've never even finished top 30. So
there you have it, folks. The Sean rundown of the most recent Iditarod signups. And something to be said about Aaron. So he's got 4 in a row, 1, 2, 3, 5 in a row, top 10. So, I'm sure it's top 10 is what the goal is. And I'm sure top 5 is like what he's shooting for. And hopefully just having a shot to send it, He had 21 and 20 was second and fifth place. 2015 was third place. So he's definitely sniffed it, and I'm sure he's going to be driven. And yeah, I mean, like you said, Eddie had a great run with his dogs last year, so I'm sure it'll be it's a team that has the experience it's not like the dogs have been off for a year. Aaron wasn't running last year, but the dogs are ready. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. And yeah, again, like I said, I just love that we have more racers signed up. And so the last thing we'll do before we talk a little bit about Hunter is bring up at the time of this recording, the Ace race has just begun. And so just going to kind of pull up and see if there's any update on some things. Mostly what we're seeing is that a lot of the mushers have taken off, and they've got singles, they've got juniors, they've got doubles as well. If we're looking at this list here, Sean, I think we were kind of talking about some names that we could see being at the top. We mentioned Emily Robinson. Who else was it going to be? Jesse Holmes. And then we also talked about, who else was it?
Dave Turner.
That's right. So those are 3 that kind of come to mind at the top of as we look at the list. Is anyone else that kind of stands out?
It looks like Gabe Dunham's doing the doubles, and I don't think there's that many people doing doubles, but she would be my guess for finishing near the top of the doubles. And you got some fast dog teams in there. Ann Corrigan's running Squid Acres team. But yeah, those, as far as who's going to win this, what is considered to be a social race,
right.
It's not a huge prize money. They literally just tell you to shoot them a text when you leave the parking lot, right? So it's not like there's an official starting shoot. And they have to, right now it's 2 p.m. Eastern. So this is the cutoff for you got to leave between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. And if you leave after 10 a.m., that's fine, but your time starts at 10 a.m.
Right.
And so, right, I would imagine if they left at 7 a.m. and it's 10 a.m. right now, the people that left right at 7, like Emily Robinson, who's going to be putting in around a 5-hour time, she's over halfway there, and if everything's going smoothly. So we'll cover this race a little bit with more detail once we actually know how it ends and stuff. But yeah, that's my top 3 prediction. Yeah, Jesse, Emily, and Dave.
And obviously, so the Barringtons and doubles, that would be another name to win the doubles, I feel like. In addition, you said Gabe might be at the top with Brian. So yeah. But yeah, we'll talk more about that on the next intro. Now, before we transition over to our interview with Hunter, what are your thoughts on our time with him?
He's just super easy to talk to guy. It's so fun to connect with people for the first time. And, I'd never really met him, but we've been watching him for at least a year, and it was cool to hear his origin story and hear he has just such a positive attitude and just a happy disposition, which is something that his dogs read and can pick up on. And I'm sure his dog team's just as happy. It seems like they are when they're moving down the trail at friggin' 10.5 miles an hour, 650 miles in the Iditarod. So
at 22 and as a rookie racer too.
And we heard, he underwent some serious weather on the coast that slowed him down a little bit. He went into detail about that story, which if you listen to our time with Wade told that story from his perspective. It was cool to hear Hunter tell it from his perspective. Yep. And you can kind of connect those two stories, paint a pretty clear picture of what went down there at that last run from White Mountain, and just what went into his decision making to kind of ease off and give his team a little bit more rest, and kind of concede that rookie of the year to. It wasn't a concession, I guess. It would just be kind of he didn't push it too much there at the end. He erred on the side of caution, and the side of caution for Hunter Keefe is 11th place, which is insane. So really impressive year mushing for him, and he's on everyone's radar coming up to as far as being a competitive top 10 guy this coming year. It was fun because it seems like I'm like, dude, you clearly know exactly what you're doing, and he's like, yeah, still kind of figuring it out, and it's just like. That's he seems like just a humble guy that doesn't. He's like, I don't have it all figured out, and as far as how to be a competitive musher, and I'm aware of that, and I think that makes him a good competitive musher, like having that humility. So it was really fun talking to him.
Yeah, I agree with all of what you said, and it just kind of stood out to me that this has been a dream of his since he was a child. Like he's literally. I think since he was 5 years old, if you go to his website, hunterkeefe.com, I think.
It's sick a website name. I love it, dude.
If you go there, there's this cute picture of him for Halloween dressed up as a musher. And I just think that's really badass that he didn't have any other goal. He got through high school and all that. He talks about being in a competitive high school and education being important. And it was like, all right, yeah, I finished that and I'm coming to Alaska and just like living out my dream. And now he's working with the Reddingtons. And I just think that it's a pretty badass story to kind of hear from someone at such a young age. So yeah, with that, we're going to wrap up this intro. Did you have anything else that you wanted to throw in before we roll through to Hunter?
I think we both think that Alabama shouldn't have been in the Final Four college football playoffs, but they did beat Georgia, and that's tough for this guy right here who's a diehard Georgia fan. But it's okay. It's all right, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really. We lost by 3 points. Whatever. I'm not too worried about it. No one listening, though, probably cares too much about Georgia football, so I'm not going to sit here and dwell on it with you guys. For those of you watching, hopefully you've enjoyed the shirt in the background. That's the shirt we made for Sean for his Iditarod
Hit us up
run.
if you want one and you live in the United States. It's kind of hard to send stuff internationally. But
Yeah. I'm moving the mic out of the way slowly so you can see it.
Is it a podcast shirt? No. Will that come one day? Yes.
Yes.
Am I going to continue to ask myself questions that are yes or no questions? You bet. But this shirt was from my Iditarod run, and we have extra ones, probably in your size and color. So,
so maybe
send us an email or DM us or subscribe or none of those things.
Yeah.
Whatever. They should start listening.
Maybe a little Venmo action.
Yeah.
$5. We'll give them a shirt. I don't know, something. And then I wanted to point out the buckle. Sean's buckle, baby.
Gold loop.
Can we zoom in on that a little bit there? Yeah. You got to finish.
Dude, for the people that are listening, they're like, this part sucks.
This part sucks, but, you can see this. So, anyways, well, on that note, now that Sean's reminded me about the people that are listening, thank you for listening to another episode. Enjoy our time with Hunter. And alrighty, folks.
Nice. Holy shit, dude. I bet you they got a crazy wall of fame.
Like
you
the
get
museum.
lost looking at.
Yeah, first time
That's
I came
awesome.
here, I thought I was in a museum.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
There's some history there, I would imagine.
So, Hunter, welcome to the Mushing Alaska podcast. Thanks for joining us. And, well, first of all, how are you doing?
Real good. Thanks for having me. It's a beautiful morning here in Kinnick, so it's awesome to be able to talk to you guys.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. And how are things in terms of training and stuff? Where are things at for you? How are things looking?
I feel like we're right where we should be, kind of where we have been in the past, and I think we kind of take our own approach, maybe a little laid back, but it's been nice. A little warm weather recently, which is kind of typical this time of the year. We always kind of have a time of the season where we got to put on our ice cleats, but it'll pass.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, what's you guys below freezing down up there?
Maybe this morning I saw a touch of ice. It rained pretty good yesterday, and that's kind of in the forecast again today. It was definitely pretty warm. I wasn't wearing too many layers this morning.
Yeah, it's been pretty nasty here in Anchorage with it was like in the 40s. My buddies, like, the inversion was crazy too. It was like I've never heard of an inversion this crazy. It was like 54 degrees at my buddy's cabin in Eagle River.
Wow.
And it's like 30, 35, Brendan, like in Anchorage, and then you go up 1,000 feet of elevation and it's 54 degrees. It's
wow.
crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait, you guys didn't you guys just have an epic amount of snow and now all of a sudden it's hot again? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, we had a pretty good early snow season as far as November goes, but it never really froze up that good before. We had a couple days of cold weather, but now it's warm again. So it's just it's early winter, late fall, kind of typical for the area, but
Does that mean it's
kind of snow.
Does that mean it's kind of like muddy and sloshy and stuff?
We have a good enough base on the trail. I didn't really measure how much snow fell, but it seemed like probably around 2 feet, and then it packed, and we got a really nice base. So I'm on the sled right now, which is good for Thanksgiving time, right after Thanksgiving, and I've been on the sled before Thanksgiving, so that's good. But we're not crossing as far as we might normally go if we had cold temperatures. But I'm on lakes, which is pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you signed up for any non Iditarod stuff this winter?
Yeah, I always like to do the Kinnick races, and this year is going to be fun. We've got the Kinnick 100 and 200 separated. So we've got the 50-50, which is the style we're going to do the 100 coming up here mid-December, and that'll be my first race of the season. And then the Kinnick 200 will be in the new year in January, and then I'll run that race as well. And then I signed up for a new one this year, which I'm excited for. I signed up for the Cusco this year as well to get the dogs ready. Typically, I run the Willow 300. It's in the area, and this year not happening. So we had to come up with something new, and that's the one we went for. So I'm really excited about trying a new race, and I've heard only good things about the Cusco.
That is gonna be, dude. I'm so stoked to see as a fan of the race. This might be like the greatest sled dog race competition on planet Earth, dude. I mean, like,
Yeah,
just
that's what
like
I've heard, and I can't wait to
you know,
try it.
specifically this year though. Like, I mean,
Oh yeah,
I've only been following mushing since like 2017. Winter was like my first mushing winter, and this seen something like this. This is like a crazy field of like
signups
if
were
you
epic.
yeah, was it just in general, just the fact that there was just so many competitive dog teams that were in the race.
Yeah, and the way they do it too, they kind of slow release it. It's not where some
Oh, I
races
like that.
it's sign up and then you just like see the list. It was like a slow release. Sometimes every couple days we get a new one, and it was just like every name that dropped was like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
there's a team that's gonna be hard to beat or really good competition and pretty epic to see names that you haven't seen coming out of the woodworks too. See Aaron come back is cool and things like that. It was just wow. It was
Jeff.
shocking. Every
Jeff
name.
King. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. Yeah, hopefully they get some. That we got a lot of time between then and now, and I always got to catch myself because like it snowed and then a bunch, and it got cold after that, and I was like, oh, dude, winter's here. Like it's over. Like winter's here, and then it gets like 45 degrees, and I'm like, this is bullshit. And
Yeah.
then and then I'm like, okay, wait a second. It's still like November. Like chill out,
Yeah.
And this we still got lots of weeks. It's still, but it's close, man. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
you got this
You
race
look
coming up.
outside, it looks like December, but it's not. It's like, yeah. I keep catching myself because I'm like thinking it's later than it is just because the way it looks with so much snow, but it's still early.
Yeah, right on.
So, kind of want to get into your story a little bit, and Sean and I, before we do these recordings, we try our best to do whatever research we can about our guest. And first of all, I want to give a shout out to your website. Whoever is in charge of that is doing a wonderful job because there's
Which
a
is
lot.
probably Hunter, right?
Is
We got it.
No, my dad and Trish Hansen have spearheaded the website. Trish has done all the work, but my dad helps a lot with the logistics and talking to her because I don't always have time to figure all that stuff out. It stresses me out, but they've done a great job. I'm really grateful to have it.
Nice. Yeah, no, like it for anyone who wants more information than what maybe we cover during this episode, I would definitely tell you just to go to hunterkeefe.com. So,
Dude, great website name, dude. You got hunterkeefe.com. Are you kidding me, man? There's not one other dude that wanted to put a website up that's called Hunter Keefe.
It works.
Nice.
So the first thing that kind of stuck out to me is your desire to be a musher from such a young age, and like you've got the picture of your Halloween costume at 10 years old. I love it. But what did you have exposure to mushing, which is why you were into it, or like what do you recall about mushing that stood out to you at such a young age?
I think what was like my very first exposure to just like the idea of mushing was the Balto cartoon. That's what I always say it was. I remember like as early as kindergarten, just like whenever the Balto cartoon was on, I was tuned in. I thought that was the best movie in the world. And one of my teachers noticed that and gave me information on the Iditarod. So pretty soon after I was interested in dogs, I was interested in the Iditarod and the idea of it. And from following the race as early as 2006, 2007. I have like the yearly documentary every year from 2006 onward. Just watching the Iditarod and being a total Iditarod freak. And my family was really good about supporting me and ended up taking me to dog races. In Michigan, we have a little bit of dog racing. I was able to go to the UP 200. Is I think around that somewhere from like 8 to 10 years old mark was my first UP 200 that I got to go to as a spectator. And every project, anything that teachers gave me choices on as a kid, ended up going sled dogs or Alaska or something like that. I remember I did a project on the the vet checks at UP 200. I mean, anything I could squeeze it in there with my schoolwork, I was putting it in there too.
That's so cool
Nice.
to like be like a, I don't know, it's cool. Like you're like grow up like a huge fan, and then you're like, like it probably felt like unattainable. Like, oh, me running the Iditarod, dude, come on, kidding
Yeah.
me? What am I? I'm gonna be in the NFL, and here you are, having such an insane resume from last winter and previous ones too. Does it feel like kind of like it's pretty crazy that we're doing this?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal at times, and it's just like funny how things work out over time. And um, ending up at the Reddingtons is pretty epic. And I think if I had told childhood self that I was gonna be running the Reddington Dogs, I don't think I would have believed myself at all. But the way it's worked out has been really awesome, and the group of dogs I'm behind, I think, is top tier, one of the best, and trying to do them justice is always one of my goals.
Yeah.
Nice. So when you were following it at a young age, who are some of the mushers that you enjoyed following?
When I first started, Jeff King won the first Iditarod I ever watched, and that I was kind of hooked on Jeff pretty early on. I really liked Jeff King, but it was a rough year to start following Jeff King because, of course, Lance started winning. And at first, I was the Jeff guy, so Lance wasn't my favorite, but I learned to really, really look up and love Lance over time as well. But I was like Jeff King, Ali Zirkle. So that was another couple hard years there watching Ali come close and
Ugh,
not win, but um,
brutal.
I really looked up to them and loved how they talked about their dogs, and the moves that they made were incredible throughout the years.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So yeah, you're carrying out your like childhood dream. That's there's something to be said about that. I feel like like do you have like a message for anyone listening just about the idea of trying to like go for a goal that is a childhood dream?
Yeah, for me, I feel like I never really had any other plans. I kind of totally put myself into it. I dedicated myself to it, and when I thought of other things I wanted to do, and even today, I still can't really think of something I would set down mushing for and try to pursue. It's always just kind of been what I've gone after and tried to pursue in my life, and being totally focused on it and not going astray. I went to a really competitive high school that was really like college, 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 college. You got to go to college. Which there's no problem with that, but everyone was trying to steer me away from going towards Alaska and running dogs because they were so focused on getting everyone to go to school. And I had to, kind of stick up for myself and say, no, this I got a plan and what I want to do, and this is how I'm gonna accomplish that goal. And my family was supportive, and so were a couple teachers. Were like, if that's what you want to do, go for it. And I feel like it's worked out for me. And I think you just really have to believe in yourself, and it's good to have a great support system as well. To have people who believe in you.
Yeah, yeah, no, I was so essentially like to follow that up, is it essentially that you graduated high school and immediately moved to Alaska?
Pretty much, yeah. Was within a couple months. I hung out with my friends there for a couple months and got everything lined up. My uncle actually went on a dog tour in Girdwood, Alaska with Nick Petit, and that's kind of how I got my foot in the door there. I was looking for different touring jobs and stuff like that, and it was actually my uncle who put in a word for me, went on this tour with Nick and thought it was a good place to go. And then within, I think, 2 months of me graduating, I was on a one-way ticket being picked up by a guy I had only ever messaged on Facebook. It was pretty unreal.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds like
Wow.
the Nick style of doing things.
Yep.
And I think like the you know, yes, you followed your dream and it's against all odds kind of thing is what it sounds like on paper, but like I think like it's for people like that are trying to get into mushing, it's like pretty if you're willing to like okay, I might not make money this winter
Yeah.
and I could and you certainly would make money in the summer if you find a tour place to work, and they're all like always hiring for, tourism, there's usually something you can find almost every summer. A,
Yep.
B, almost every kennel needs help, and if
Yep.
and a lot of them would be giving you a place to stay and maybe like some grocery cash or whatever. You can pull this off if you're
Yeah.
willing to fully commit and dive in head first. It's not like, that's not like an uncommon story to like
Yeah.
have someone get into mushing that's from Michigan or from Georgia.
Yeah.
But then once you get in it, you meet people, you meet dogs, you get out,
Yeah.
you see, oh, there is an opportunity there, there's an opportunity here, and you know, you can, it's doable,
Oh,
like,
totally.
and I feel like it's more doable than some other becoming an astronaut or something, so it's
Yeah.
like, it's definitely like, if you're into it, come up here for a summer and go work
Yeah.
with some dogs, and it's you can do it too, whoever you
Yeah.
are.
It's super, yeah. I like the way you put it. I think it's really super attainable, and it's not as wild as it seems. And if you can make yourself, if you're, dedicated and able to put in the hard work, any kennel will want you. As long as it's hard to find a good handler and someone who's reliable and hardworking, and if you can be that person for somebody, I feel like the doors just open and the
Absolutely.
opportunities are kind of endless. And yeah, it's not hard, it's not crazy, and just about anyone can do it. Anywhere you look, you're wanted as help.
Absolutely. It's not like, like when you learning the basics of mushing, it's not like incredibly skilled labor. It's like
No.
you're feeding dogs, scooping poop, putting a harness on a dog. It's not like the most insanely athletic thing to steer a sled. You
Yeah.
can do this. It's the tough part is the reliability, consistently showing up. Some people might not be dog people too. I guess I kind of take that for granted. I just kind of
Yeah.
assume people speak dog as well as I
Yeah.
do. But some people maybe not. But I don't know. I just, yeah, it's doable. That's my point.
Yeah. I just think if you're the right person and the shoe fits and you can stick with it, I think anyone who wants to can make it into the sport. And once you start, the doors just keep opening for you.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So tell us a little bit about your time working with Nick. So you said it was your uncle that kind of like made the connection for you, if you will.
Yeah.
And like what was that like, working with this musher with an accent that you never met before?
And in what
Yeah.
years was this also?
Yeah, I was there for a couple years. It was pretty epic. When I first heard of him, um, I'd been following the Iditarod, and I remember, watching Nick come really close against Yor, and I remember watching this guy mushing up the coast, double digits, 10, 11 miles an hour, and that was kind of my first, experience watching Nick race, and I was just super surprised by him. And then actually getting hooked up with him and connected, it was pretty cool. And my uncle, did all that for me, got my foot in the door. Next thing I know, I'm, researching Girdwood, Alaska, and it just seemed like this awesome place. And with the dog team that was really at the top of their game. It's always been a super competitive team, and the race records are pretty unbelievable there. So to get to, hop right in with a team that was at the very, very top of the mid distance and Iditarod racing world as well. It was just a great place to learn. Um, Nick does things in a way that maybe not all mushers do, but he's really smart, and a lot of very interesting and things that I carry through in my mushing nowadays too. Of just things I learned there, getting to watch a team compete at that level, and then I was also raising the younger group. My first winter I spent in Trapper Creek, basically on my own for the most part, and that was pretty awesome. Just being out there and learning how to survive in Alaska, and then how to train dogs as well. It was definitely sink or swim, but I learned a lot of epic things in Trapper Creek and got to explore that area, which was pretty fun. And then my first race being the Kobuk 440 was an honor to get to run a team in that race and experience a race like that. Kind of spoiled me as far as joining in races after that. I thought they were all going to be like the Kobuk 440, uh, but I mean it was a great first experience, and getting to meet the people up there and run dogs in country like that had me hooked. Um, After that, I was ready to do whatever I could to run even longer races.
All right, so I got a couple things that I feel like both Sean and I have questions about, but I want to go back to you said you were in Trapper Creek pretty much entirely by yourself.
Yeah, I was there in a cabin by myself. There was the property owners that would come cut firewood, and I would kind of help out with that every so often. They'd show up, usually once a week or something like that. I'd see them. But the cabin, I was there by myself, and I was off the grid for the first time. So learning how to live off generators and um, live off of firewood and hauling water, all that. There was a lot of work involved with just keeping yourself going there. And then, trying to keep in trails too. I didn't have a snow machine, so I was doing everything by dog team, which luckily it wasn't a crazy winter. We never got like 2 or 3 feet out of whack. That would have kind of put me at a standstill. The most we ever got was like a foot of snow. So I was able to do it, but that was hard at the time. But I look back at it as some pretty epic training, and sometimes I wish I had that opportunity again to train dogs the way I did that winter.
Uh, I'm curious about the mental piece of that because, uh, we Sean and I have had the conversation on different episodes, just like the mental aspect of training, and it can be a long training season of training. Um, were you like mentally okay during that? Because I know like I just know that when Sean went out to Alaska and he was like, "Oh man, this is nothing like what we're used to from here in Atlanta, Georgia." And there was like a rude awakening, if you will. So like there wasn't that for you, or there
Oh,
was
it was
adjustment,
rough.
or what?
It was rough. That first winter was hard, and the isolation of it, and then just the keeping up with chores. On a day where I do firewood or haul water, I'd kind of call it good for a day. I wouldn't train dogs that day. That was the work for the day. It was just keeping the little cabin running, and I had a hard time. But I think the 440 is what brought me back. I think I was really low at the end of that winter, and I didn't know if I could handle it. But having that race being April, I had just enough time to just keep slowly plugging in the miles over the winter where, I had a team that could make it around the loop. We might have struggled a little bit, but we made it around. And just getting to experience that country, it all the lows that I had that winter were resolved, and it made it worth it for me. And that's what brought me back. I was definitely kind of at the point of thinking about going back and turning it in, and then getting to go up there and experience that is what had me hooked again. It brought back my love for mushing, and like, oh, that's why we did all that. That's why we
Yeah.
struggled like that all winter.
I feel like that is a theme amongst a lot, if not every musher, just like always having, I stepped away, but I'm not, I'm gonna get back into it at some point.
Yeah.
And it's you hear this from people at the Iditarod start line every freaking year. They're like, dude, I think this is gonna be my last Iditarod, man. I just
That's
feel like
it.
it's been a lot. And then you see them the next 3 years in the Iditarod, and you're like, all right, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
No, it's just the lows are low and the highs are high. And gosh, those events, the racing, it's just like it's not about actually racing, especially for
Yeah.
you, a rookie Kobuck 440 guy. You're not
Yeah.
out there trying to win the Kobuck. Dude, it's just
No.
cool. You're out here with other dog people who've been through the same shit you've been through all winter long, and you get to share the trail with them. You get to learn about a completely crazy zone in Northwest Alaska,
Yeah.
and that's what makes it so special is the community. And of course you get all these new trails that are with veterinarians and marked kind of.
Yeah. Hey, we just totally do. And that season, I was supposed to do a couple other races, but it just happened where we didn't have great weather that year. The Connect canceled, and so did the Willow, and it just ended up that was my first one. And I remember before Lance Mackey was in Trapper Creek for a second, and somehow I missed him, but he knew I really wanted to meet him, and he called me on the phone, and I got to talk to him. And I remember telling him the 440 is going to be my first race, and he said, "Wow, that's a doozy." And that just kind of stuck in my head the whole way. Like even he was kind of shocked I was going for it, but we made it.
That's funny. I can just picture you being like, "Yeah, doozy, huh?" And you're like, mile 70 into this 400 plus mile race. You're like, "Yeah, it is a doozy, isn't it?"
It is
Some
a doozy.
long runs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I hope to at least see that race one day. up
Oh,
there.
that's one.
Yeah.
So I know that you guys may not have bumped into each other at a race, but we were talking about it. Is there any chance, like, what years were you working with Nick? Because, like, is there a chance that you could have been handling at a race that maybe Sean was at, either in or handling for Jeff or something?
So that first winter, I came up in the summer of 2018. So most of the races would have been in 2019, and I was in Trapper Creek. So I never had to, really go to the races to handle. My job was keep the other dogs healthy and keep them going and keep the little property we had running. So I never really had to handle at any of those races. And then the next winter, which had been the 2020 winter, I ended up being in most of those races. So I never really had to do the like hands-on handler at races gig. I was mostly taking care of the homestead.
Right on.
Gotcha.
So this last winter, like, I think I had seen your name in some races and stuff, but like we followed the Knick, which was a super, like, I don't know, I'd never really followed the Knick. It was actually, I was really, like, being at the race was awesome at the start, and it was really exciting between Eddie and Brent, and I never would have guessed that Eddie was going to be up front. That was kind of his, like, I'm here, what's
Yeah,
up kind of race. And then you kind of, I don't remember every position of the front of that race,
yeah,
but we saw you got seventh, and we were like, oh man, like, seventh place, who's this Hunter Keefe guy? And so then we were like, all right, well, whatever, we'll see him around, maybe not. And then Willow happens, boom, we're talking silver medal.
yeah,
Hello. uh
Baby, let's go.
and so, like, all right, Hunter Keefe, all right, and then you get into the Iditarod, and we're like, you know all right, there's, like, I mean, it's a Willow 300. That's, like, probably the easiest mid-distance race. This guy's
yeah,
probably not that good at mushing. And then, boom, you're, like, top 10 the whole time, finish 11th, sportsmanship award, all, fastest freaking run times. Uh, and not the
You and
fastest,
Eddie
but up
having a
there,
nice,
yeah.
you
And
and Eddie
so,
having
like,
a nice back and forth.
so I
yeah,
just, like, this, like, you kind of, like, this was like you're coming out, season, and, talk about that process from, like, the training last winter, working with the Reddingtons. You got, like,
yeah.
some insane supply of dog knowledge, and
Oh
of
yeah,
course of incredible genetics. And I mean, but everybody's got the genetics, mostly,
yeah.
and
Everyone's got dogs now.
everyone's got the pretty much same untapped potential,
Yeah,
for the most part. And so, talk about that process from, like, you showing up at the Reddingtons to last winter's race season, and yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
This will be my fourth year with the team now. So my first winter, I was kind of couch surfing really. I'm looking for a place to stay, and Robert Reddington actually ended up dropping me off at Ramey's and said, "Hey, you need some help? Here you go," and to his dad. And I was working full time in construction. That's kind of how I ended up in the Knick area. I needed a place to stay, and after work every day, I would come home and help with the dogs because you can't stay away from the dogs. And that first season we did well. We were never out of the top 10, and we ended up winning our little local race here, the Goose Bay 150, and that was pretty fun. So the
nice,
upcoming season, Ramey kind of wanted to see what we could do if we focused full time on the dogs. So I helped him in the summer. We worked at headquarters that summer, and then I was able to not have to do the construction job all winter and just focus on the dog. So that second winter was pretty epic. And in all those little mid distance races we did, the Willow and the Goot and I think we did the Knick that year. I think that was our first Knick maybe. But our little races, we were always in the top 5, and we ended up winning the Goose Bay again. So that was another epic
damn,
season for us, and we had improved.
back to back, dude.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's crazy. Okay,
yeah. So the third season, that's this last winter, that's when we, decided, okay, we've had, two pretty good race seasons. Let's see if we can do Iditarod with them. Like we knew we had a pretty good team, and I was learning how to race more competitively. When I had qualified with Nick's dogs, I was never trying to race really. So the first 2 seasons with Ramey is where I was really learning, the idea and how to race and get my foot in the door there. So that's when we decided we were going to go Iditarod. And Kinnick was, it's an early season race and it went well, but maybe not as well as we had hoped. We had, had those, last year we were always in the top five. So it kind of felt like a little step down. But we definitely knew the dogs did well and we had a good team. And after the Kinnick, I felt like the dogs really, kind of got tough. And coming into the Willow 300, um, just the way dogs were coming in after training, Ramey and I kind of both could see it that they were coming into their own, and we knew going into the Willow we had a good team. Did we know we were going to be, going for the win? Not necessarily. It just kind of turned out that way. That once we got in the Willow, we were up there and having a really good race and at the front, in the front. Got beat out there at the end by Nick, who's obviously a pretty incredible racer. But it was fun to be neck and neck, and I'd never come that close to winning a 300. The 150 I'd had some fun in, but a 300-mile race to do that well and was exciting. So coming
How,
into Iditarod, we were excited.
I was just curious, how close was that first and second place finish
11.
with you and Oh wow! So,
Yeah.
so like it was neck and neck at the end, or
Yeah,
like
I left the last checkpoint in lead. I had a 1 minute lead. It was a little tiny bit of lead, and I had a little trouble leaving the checkpoint. I didn't quite have the right leaders in there. I think I had a female and season, whatever the deal was. I had to switch leaders, kind of flip things around. Nick passed me there, and then then I started rolling, and I got on my feet again, but I wasn't able to catch him. I never got to see him there, but I knew it was close, almost within 10 minutes, which is pretty awesome. So coming into Iditarod, we knew we had a pretty good team, but it's my rookie race. The goal was to have fun and, of course, do as best we could. It wasn't a team that I was just gonna, lollygag with. They're not a lollygag type team, but to be as high up as we were coming into Rainy Pass in second place was a little bit shocking. Maybe not necessarily where I wanted to be. I came in there and I thought, am I messing up?
Uh-oh. Yeah.
But I knew going into the race I was going to do the longer runs leading into Rainy Pass just because my team had been doing those races. Kinnick 200, Willow 300. They're long runs. Kinnick 100-mile runs. Willow 70, 80-mile runs. So 270-mile runs off the bat didn't seem that crazy, at least before. And then when I came in second place, I thought maybe it was a little crazy, but it ended up working out pretty well.
Right on. So I like I firstly, before I get into specifics of races,
Mhm.
what is like, I don't know. This is where my knowledge stops happening. So like, to go from like running a race with doing the best your team can do and
Mhm.
getting to the finish line with Nick's dogs to like now you're like competing in this race and the margins of your decisions are finer when you're racing, right? Like if you make
Yeah.
if you make the wrong call, the consequences of your team's speed or how they're going to perform, within the next couple runs, yeah, you have less play.
Yeah.
And but what like that going from like, all right, this is sick, we're mushing, the dogs are incredible, even if they come in last place or middle of the pack, to now you're competing against the like literally Nick Petit, who's arguably the best mid distance musher in mushing right now.
Yeah.
And how what is your mentality changing from those two kind of styles of mushing?
Yeah, that's something I can't even really, wrap my brain around too much yet. I feel like I'm still so new to it and I don't know so much. I feel like sometimes I just jumped on a Porsche. I jumped in a Porsche because I have an incredible dog team that I'm behind and I feel like I'm still, just out there trying to have fun. When I get up there and I see where I'm, placing, I get a little bit more competitive. Um, but at the end of the day, I feel like I just have a really incredible dog team I'm behind, and the dogs and I get along pretty darn well. And um, trying to keep up with them is the hardest part.
Yeah.
They're a lot more talented and incredible team than I could, ever hope to be as good as a musher as they are dogs. So trying to keep up with them is the hardest part. Getting yourself awake and keeping up with them. They can do it. Um, and making the right choices for them. But I don't think I've reached their potential or really even tapped into it that much yet. So it feels like, just trying to keep up with them is the hardest part
And by
in
being
keeping your head in the game.
right, and by being competitive, like being competitive in mushing to me, what I think of is when, because you show up, you're up there and you see the other
Yeah.
mushers and you're like, oh, okay, it's on, and then
Yeah.
and then what are you doing to be competitive? It's probably just being super efficient with like your decisions and your tasks.
Yeah.
It's not like you're like being competitive. I'm gonna let off the like brake and run
Yeah.
faster. No, it's like, all right, I got 15 minutes to go until I get to the checkpoint. What's the first
Yeah.
thing I'm gonna do? I'm gonna open my drop bag. I'm gonna grab this out of it. I'm gonna take booties off
Yeah.
the dogs, put the straw on, and I'm gonna be done in 17 minutes. And
Yeah.
or you're running 670 miles. Like, how many stops do we want to make? When are we gonna
Yeah.
make them? And how long are they gonna be? And am I gonna feed the dog? And those that whereas before you get into competitive mode, you're kind of like, well, let's just give these guys a couple minutes to
Yeah.
roll
Let's
around
take
the
an extra
snow.
half here.
Yeah, it's like whatever. So that's what you mean by competitive. I'm thinking for maybe it's hard to see what is competitive in mushing. It's because you're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
the
'Cause you
athlete,
can't
right? The
press the
dogs
gas.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it's more, well, let's do a 4-hour break and let's make it 4 hours to the minute, or, hey, we're early on, our chores getting done. Like, let's get out of here. I guess that's, how you try to be more competitive and yeah, maybe make less stops. But I just been fortunate where I can just kind of let them roll, not push them, but if they're rolling nice, let them roll. And we've had some really incredibly fast run times and try to do the best we can, taking care of them at the checkpoints as well.
Yeah,
Which I
and
feel like we've done pretty good.
yeah, absolutely, and you've talked about some specific dogs in some of your interviews.
Yeah.
And we've gone 48 minutes without talking about any specific dogs, so that's kind of like, what are we doing here? So
Yeah.
talk about some like coming of age stories with your like specific members of your dog team. Maybe a dog that you're like, whatever, and then they end up being like total MVP, or some kind of moment or something like that.
Yeah, they're all pretty fun and epic. And I can't really go through anything and not talk about Senior. He's kind of my main dude. He's, the leader who's led me through every race over the past 3, and this will be my 4th winter, and hopefully we have another epic season where he leads everything for me. And he's just a dog that I don't know if anyone would, maybe pick him out right away. He's not the craziest eater. He's not the one screaming or barking at the beginning to go. But something happens when he's out on the trail where we just came in from a run yesterday, and I think he's still got the harness mark on him. He's giving it his all up there in
Oh
lead.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the feel like when you sleep on your bed sheets and you have like
yeah,
the imprint of the sheets.
yeah.
That's the imprint of the harness on the dog.
Yeah, like he comes back in, and yeah, when you see those harness marks on them, they've been, giving it their all, and especially to be up in lead and pulling that hard, I feel like it's a position where if they want to, they can set the pace, and pulling the weight isn't necessarily their job. They can just kind of set the pace, but he puts in the work and is just always a really great driving dog up there. And then I've got these young guys that um, are a lot to manage most of the year, but when you get into a race, they're exactly who you want. Those are my Beetle brothers. There's 4 boys: John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and they're epic dogs. And I don't maybe train as hard as everybody, but I can't get them tired with what I do. They come in. It might be our longest run of the season yet, and they act like they haven't gone anywhere. Like, gee, like, can you guys chill out for a second? But like trying to get the harness off them is as hard as putting it on. They're
Oh
wild
my
guys,
gosh.
and
That's
they're
funny.
epic. I think they're one of the best litters I've ever ran, and getting to run with them last year was their first season running Iditarod, and they were starting to look better and outperform dogs when we got to Elam, which was just like, what are you guys doing? That's not what young dogs are supposed to be doing, but they were. So coming into their next
Wow.
Iditarod, I'm excited, and I had 3 out of 4 make it all the way to Nome. I had to leave my buddy John in Elam, but I'm excited to show him Nome this year. So to get to run those guys, and I have some of their older siblings that are trying to catch up with the young guys, and a lot of a couple of young dogs too. It's a fun group. I've got my main core group basically the same. A lot of those older dogs that have been there, done that, that are just powerhouses and epic to work with. Quite a few of them have in those first seasons when I wasn't running to Nome myself, I was letting Ryan borrow some of the best ones from the group. So he, took them to Nome himself. So they've seen Nome, they've been there. And then these young guys now, the Beatles coming up, and I've got these girls, these sisters, Taz, Tickle, and Tyvek, the T litter. They're three
Nice.
sisters, and they're out of Bison and some Jeff King lines bred up by Mike
Dude,
Santos.
I had some bison dogs that we trained for a couple years at Jeff's. That's fun
Those
dogs.
Bison lines are epic. Nick's kennel was almost exclusively Bison lines, so to have those girls in there, I'm familiar with the lines, the personalities. They're just fun-loving little lead dogs. Taz led me all the way to White Mountain. She was in heat for the entire race, which was a little bit to juggle, but ended up kind of being a really great driving force and motivator for the boys to go a little quicker. So she was a lot of fun until it was a little too much of a distraction. So I had to leave her there in White Mountain. But I was kicking myself. I wanted to get her to Nome so bad. The year prior with Ryan, she made it all the way to safety. So she's come really close. And I was like, I don't care what happens. I'm going to get Taz to Nome after she made it to safety. And I had to leave her in White Mountain. So she's come close, and I want to bring her there. And she's just a really fun dog. And so are her sisters, kind of all same personalities. They're all leading teams right now. I've got my big boy Whip. He's kind of a goofball, but he's a really good lead dog in a storm, and he's the one who ended up getting me through there at the end of the race and bringing me into Nome. So he's in there along with a couple of his kids. They're yearlings now. My cookie litter. I got Chocolate Chip and Peanut Butter. Snickerdoodle, Monster, and Fortune are all trying to keep up with Dad, and they're a pretty fun young group of dogs. If they'll make Iditarod team, they'd be yearlings, but I've seen yearlings do really well, especially with Nick. He's never scared of taking a yearling, so they could be pretty epic as well.
To have that youthful bliss on the team. Dude, Brent had some interview at the beginning of some of these races where he was like, he's introducing some yearling or 2-year-old that's never been to a race, and he's like, he has no idea what he's about to get into, but he's excited about it, and that's like, it exactly embodies like what a young dog, inexperienced dog brings. It's just they have no idea what's coming, but they're ready to do it, whatever it is.
Yeah, they're so stoked.
Aye, Captain. So I'm glad you brought up that last run. I was curious, like, Wade, we talked to him a little bit. He mentioned, there was some crazy weather and that you guys connected out there I believe on the Topcock Hills. So like how is those winds? I've been on those hills and I've experienced those winds, and they're pretty fucked. So what was your experience?
Well, going into the run, the rookie meeting, there had, of course, been a lot of rookie mushers that had troubled the year before. So they actually kind of brought them into the rookie meeting and had them talk to us before Iditarod. And they kind of told us, what they thought was the best plan going out of White Mountain. They were talking about how you don't purge your sled and ask for a weather report, and, kind of know that when you get in a situation like that, just because you press for help doesn't mean help's going to be there in a minute. It might be hours before. So, kind of have that in mind when you go into a situation like that. You're putting yourself into it, and what you get yourself into, you're kind of responsible for. So going into it, I didn't really listen that well. I did purge my sled a bit. Luckily, I had a good store of dog food because it's a long run. I brought a lot of dog food, but I didn't.
What did you say? What's the word you're saying? Purge your sled? Oh, you mean like just taking everything out?
Yeah, taking everything out.
It's the last run. I don't need anything.
Yeah, I don't need all this. I don't need a bunch of human food. I don't need a bunch of water for myself. We're going to Nome. Like, it's, go. We're racing now, and I was, right there, trying to get a top 10 finish. So I was, with the idea I wanted to race on this last run. So I kind of went through my stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, they said to get a weather report. So like, as I'm getting ready to pull the hook, I'm like, what's the weather report? And the checker there said, weather report, like, expect hell. And I was like, okay. and Wade was like laughing too. Before, the weather had been pretty nice, but right as I was starting to boot dogs, it was getting windy in White Mountain, which isn't the greatest sign. I was having to kind of put the booties in my mouth just to boot the dogs. Like, this isn't awesome. And I think the dogs could kind of sense that as well. I had, a little, hiccup leaving, and I ended up waiting for Wade and following him out of White Mountain. Because I thought it'd be good to have a veteran musher in this situation. So I ended up waiting for Wade to take off, and I followed him out into the wind. And as we took that turn, off that river there into the Topcock Hills, it was like, oh boy, what have we gotten ourselves into? But Wade was the right guy to be behind because he had this attitude of, this is epic, this is the best thing ever. He was super stoked and ski pulling, and we were, trading front who was leading, trying to figure out who was a bit faster, and we were pretty evenly matched there at the beginning. And we were, going through a pretty epic side wind there. It wasn't, in our face, but it was blowing us sideways, which was kind of ended up being my problem in the end there. I was able to follow him for a while, but eventually his were kind of cutting into that wind, and mine were moving forward, doing good, but we were drifting. And it's different from trails around here where you're in the trees and the trail's pretty set and you kind of stick to the trail. When you're in an open area like that, anything could be the trail, and it was so wind packed and hard everywhere. We were drifting and we were going, but we were just getting further and further away from where we should have been going. So I kept having to kind of stop and readjust and stop and adjust. And eventually we lost Wade for a second, lost the trail, and he ended up coming back and finding us, bringing us back to the trail, which was pretty awesome of him. And, some really great sportsmanship to come get the rookie in that situation, which I think he kind of felt a little responsible because he's the one who pushed me into going into it. But it was pretty awesome to have someone like that to follow, and we followed him for a while there again. But eventually he took off, and we were kind of on our own there, which was a little nerve-wracking at first, and losing the trail again, trying to find it, walking around looking for scrape marks in the snow or anything because the markers were hard to find at that spot. I was really fortunate. I was looking for the trail. I had left my team for a while, and I saw snow machines coming, and I was like, well, we got to be close to something. And it was a couple civilians on snow machines, and I flagged them down, and it was like, where are we? Like, well, we're a mile away from the shelter cabin. And I was like, okay, cool. So I kind of watched them take off, and they went slow for me there for a second where I could see which hill they went up, and followed up to the top of that hill. And as soon as I crested that hill, as we went down, there were the trail markers. So they took off. They actually ended up waiting at the cabin and making sure I made it to the cabin. I'm sure they were waiting there for like 45 minutes for me to make it this mile to get there, but they waited for me, made sure I made it to that cabin, made sure I was all right. And I was like, yep, thank you, I'm good here. It was the Topcock Hills cabin, which is, a famous spot on the trail, and many people have been there before and stuck there. And, I just kind of decided, Wade is gone. We're not going to catch him. I'm not about to go into the blowhole if I'm already having trouble getting through this part. It's supposed to get worse coming up. So we shut it down there. I, sheltered the dogs behind the cabin and started a fire and had company all night long. It was kind of funny how, those guys left, but then I had a couple teenagers coming from Nome going towards White Mountain, come in, warm up by the fire for a second, and they took off. And then I had a family going to Nome for a basketball game show up, and these kids were behind the snow machine in a little sled hanging out on caribou hides, and they came in all cold, and they were talking about how their backs hurt from the bumpy trail. They were pretty happy to be in that cabin warming up. I think they all ended up shirtless. It was so hot that night in that cabin.
That's
and
funny.
Then in the morning we had one of the ITI bikers come. I think the guy who ended up winning the race show up in the morning. And he stood in front of the fire for just a second. He came in for, I don't know, under 10 minutes. And I'm like, so you're going to hang out? And he's like, no, it's better than it was last night. He had sheltered in a cabin in the hills. And he said, it's travelable now. You can make it. I want to get this thing done with. I'm ready to be done. Like, okay. Like, I think you got the right attitude about it. So I got out and started booting dogs after he said that and followed him. I thought I was going to catch him, but he boogied. I never saw him once on the way to Nome.
Damn.
Yeah. And it was a little windy in the morning, but nothing like it had been the night before. And we had daylight too, which helped a lot.
Yeah.
I thought it worked out. I kind of knew that no one was going to follow us out after the wind. And I had a pretty good couple hours gap before anyone was supposed to take off anyway in White Mountain. So I knew I kind of had that position locked in if I could just get going and move. So it worked out pretty well for me there, where I was able to keep my position too.
Dude, my anxiety levels right now listening to that story are that's like, yeah, I am just like having flashbacks. So yeah. Brennan, what were you about to say?
Well, my question was, you say you had a hiccup leaving White Mountain. Like, can you talk about that? Like, is it just something small or like what? Well, because okay, I'm the one that doesn't live in Alaska, so
Uh-huh.
you just come off your 8 hours, right?
Yeah.
So like, what was going on there?
I think leaving White Mountain is one of the hardest parts in the race for really any team. They come off a long rest there, and it's an open trail, and they're really cozy. You know, they're pretty happy to be hanging out, so they got to warm up a little more than they normally would have to, and just a hard spot for any dog team to kind of get rolling again once they get going and out of the checkpoint. It's just like any other checkpoint; they're ready to rock. But I had to leave that little female there, and I think some of the boys were wondering where their girlfriend went. Before every other run, she was the last thing that I would bring up the line, and I would put her in lead, and everyone was, up and ready. But when I walked her by, it was like that's when the screaming started, and
Oh
everyone was
man.
stoked. So leaving her behind, like I never walked their girl up front, and they were like, "You want where's our girl? Like you want us to do what?" And I think the wins too. I had some really
Yeah.
experienced dogs up there who kind of knew, hey, maybe it's not the best out there right now. So we went a little bit, and I kind of, as a rookie, was like, this isn't what I'm used to. So I went back towards White Mountain and then pulled back in and waited for Wade.
Gotcha.
So I had left and kind of come back, and then I snacked the dogs and just hung out. Didn't go back to the straw. I just kind of hung out in White Mountain there and waited for Wade. I could have just waited up the trail a little bit, but I went back and waited for him, and oh, it was a rookie mistake there. But it worked out for me. I just waited for Wade and worked out that I just followed him on out.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
I was just lacking confidence, really.
The 8 hour rest too, Brendan. Like once you rest more than like 6 or even 5 hours, that's like there's like each extra hour is like less and less valuable, and like it's also can be like, oh, they've rested. It's like
well, none of your rests have been 8 hours.
Yeah, and so it's like the dogs are just like in this travel mode, and then like when they sleep that much in a row, it's kind of like, okay, now it's like recovery mode is almost starting to turn on. And so, and that's like commercial fishing this summer. That's kind of how I felt. Like if I got like a long 8 hour sleep, I felt like just a little bit like kind of worse than I would have if I just slept 4 hours, because my body's like, what have you done? So yeah, that's probably played part of it.
So
they're so into race mode. Yeah, you give them that 8 hours, it ends up being more. It's harder than if they had. I think if you just had 4, they just would be, oh yeah, we're doing our thing, go again.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we have like probably about 10 minutes left for this, and I'm just bringing that up because Sean and we always have questions that we like never get to, right?
Yeah.
So let's call it now. We have 10 minutes from now to figure out what. So I'm going to ask my first question, and then Sean, you're going to go to your question, whatever it may be. I feel like having you on and not asking you about the Eddie incident and just like hearing that side of things, we wouldn't be doing a good job of that. So, we heard from Christian, and his perspective was interesting, and so I just wanted to hear what you had to say about it.
Yeah. Well, on the river for me was a great time. Going into the race, my good buddy Robert Reddington had told me the river is a really important time to keep things lighthearted. The dogs can, get a little stuck in the monotony there. And he said that's the time to get goofy, is on the river. And I'm kind of a happy, goofy guy anyway. And I had been listening to a pretty epic playlist the entire race. And I definitely was starting to utilize it as much as I could on the river to kind of stay awake and also just keep things lighthearted for the dogs. So I was listening to some pretty awesome soundtracks and kind of singing and dancing along to keep things.
Dude, what are we talking about? Real quick?
Let's hear the playlist.
Everything. I feel like a playlist with a lot of genre changes is important for me. My songs kind of they take me to places of different emotions of like happiness and then also reminding me of people. So like for me, every song is like, it changes up for me. I've got opera in there because I grew up, my mom is an opera professor, so there's like random opera tracks. I've got, Dolly Parton, she's in there. She's got some happy tracks, and Paul Simon, and I had tracks from like Brother Bear and random like kid movies, anything that would just make me feel in a good mood. and keep me up and singing and dancing. So I was kind of in one of those moods that night, and the team was rolling. I think we were averaging like 9.5 miles an hour, and I thought, by the coast we were going to be slowing, or by the river I thought we were going to be slowing down. So I was kind of feeling pretty good rolling along there. And then I saw a guy walking in the middle of the night, and we have the walkers on the trail, and I didn't know if it was, an ITI walker, but they didn't seem to be pulling their little sled deal, and it was weird. Just kind of like the timing of it, and I didn't know if I was hallucinating or what I was seeing really. And I just kind of kept going up to this walking figure, and most of the ITI walkers kind of step off the trail and kind of watch you pass, but this guy was like, he was staying right on the trail, and it like almost hit him with your sled. And so I stopped right there where he's at, and by that time I could kind of see, he was in a parka too, which the walkers for some reason are in less clothes. And like, who is this? And sure enough, it was Eddie. And he wasn't in the worst mood, but he was kind of bummed out. And I was like, what's going on? And kind of figured what had happened. He'd lost his team somehow. He's like, yeah, I fell asleep and lost my team. And like, oh shoot. And it happened to be one of the colder nights of the race. And I was like, well, get on. We gotta go find him. What else are you gonna do? Tell him to walk? So he hopped on, and at one point we were both trying to kind of ride Canadian, one on each runner, and it was just awkward and not really working. And I ended up sitting on my cooler and kind of putting my feet on the left runner and kind of let him stand and ride on the right runner, and he kind of mushed the team, and I just hung out there. And we were talking about our day or whatever, but I had my earbuds in one ear, so sometimes I was maybe singing to him a little bit. But it was just kind of the way the night went. And I was kind of surprised how long it was taking. I thought, we were just gonna like come around a bend, but you're on the river, and this year was a pretty epic trail. It was pretty flat, and we're like, well, there's nothing that's really gonna tip the sled or get the hook to set. So we're like, oh, I guess we're just gonna kind of keep going and going. And yeah, there were a couple little bumpy parts. They're like, oh, well, maybe we'll see him here, but there was nothing until we actually ended up, seeing a headlight. But it was another team we were catching, and we ended up catching and passing a team with 2 mushers on, which was pretty funny, but not his dog team, unfortunately. So we kept mushing along until we could see Eagle River out there, and that's when a snow machine ended up coming and grabbing Eddie and reuniting him with his team, which was almost a letdown to me because I really thought it would have been a funny video to come into the checkpoint with both of us mushing on the sled. We'd gone so long together already. It was kind of a bummer to see Eddie take off. But it was good. He got back to his dog team, and he was pretty bummed out that night about he'd lost his chance at Rookie of the Year and their win his dog race. But eventually, he got back in the game, obviously, and it was fun to help him out there.
For us back home, like watching the tracker, right? It's like, oh man, these 2 rookies are going back at it, back and forth. There was I feel like the middle of the race, or like right before that happened, like you guys were kind of like on each other's tails. And was it like that for you out there, or it just kind of appeared that way for us watching the tracker?
I mean, we were definitely kind of going back and forth, but it had been so early on in the race too. It was, for me, there's just so many, next run, let's see how it goes. And, a little bit of back and forth there. I was able to get him coming into Unocleat, which it was pretty good, but I, looking back, maybe could have been a little more aggressive there. I kind of laid off, and coming into Elam, I kind of let Eddie get away there, kind of waved the white flag. But yeah, it was a little back and forth, and it was pretty fun. I kind of knew going into the race that, there was a chance that we would be duking it out for Rookie of the Year. And then, I didn't know it was going to quite go the way it went as far as how close. And, 2 of us in the top 5 in Unocleat, I couldn't have guessed that.
That's crazy.
Couldn't have guessed that one. But it was pretty epic there to see us trying that hard and being up there like that.
That's
like
awesome.
What went into like you letting off the gas and waving the white flag, as you say? Like what are some of the factors that went
Just
into,
my
you know,
female in heat.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I was kind of having a little trouble with the boys focusing, and I thought that giving them a little more rest would make it easier, getting out of checkpoints. But I think a lot of that was just kind of rookie mistakes, a little less confidence, and
I mean, had you hit a wall? I mean, had you already been through several walls? Was that at all at play?
I don't really know. I think mentally I was, but I think the dogs were obviously, by their speeds and how well they were doing. I was, maybe mentally I was hitting a wall, but they were doing well. Um, that girl was a little interesting to them at times too.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
No puppies came of it, so, or maybe they did.
They did. Yeah, I thought
Nice.
that. Yeah, I thought breeding the lead dogs before the runs would take that out of their system. So I let Senior and Taz have some fun there, and we've got 9 of them now.
Oh, nice. All right.
But I think it ended up. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Then it was then they knew that was a possibility, so maybe it made them more of a distraction. My thought going into it was that I would let them have at it, and then on the run they would be totally focused. But it kind of backfired on me there.
Mm. Yeah, it's when it comes to dogs and heat, I think there's like all different kinds of ways it can go. Sometimes a female comes into heat and the boys are like meh, and sometimes it's like I will do literally anything and stop every other responsibility I have. I'm not gonna eat, I'm not gonna pull, I'm not gonna go straight. I'm going to this girl, and everything in between. So it's like, it's never just like as simple as like, oh, your dog went into heat, you got to just send her home. Like, obviously Hunter, it sounds like he tried everything he could possibly do to keep that dog in there. And
I wanted her in there.
Yeah.
We'll try again. See what she does this year for us. She's a pretty awesome little dog.
Right on.
Sean, do you have that was a long answer from a Brendan-based question, so
right.
I wanted to give it to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was curious about that the last third of the race, and it was super eventful for you because it seemed like it was just a magic carpet ride, and then you got this female in heat, you got the Topcock Hills, and then you come in 11th place. Y'all in the top 5 in Uniloclete. I was like, what the hell is happening? That's so exciting for what's to come. And it sounds like you don't really plan on retiring from mushing anytime soon. And so it's just cool to see. How old are you?
I am 24 this year, so
Jesus Christ.
I love
24, dude. That's insane. You're not even 24 yet, or did you turn 24?
No, I'm 24. Yeah,
okay.
24 this year.
Yeah. So that's exciting, man. It's like we don't have a lot of competitive 24-year-olds running the Iditarod. The last competitive 24-year-old I can think of.
Dallas Evie.
Probably Dallas. I don't know. I don't really know shit about mushing besides
be the one.
last 5 years. But yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, and that's like you're not. I ask you these questions so competing, and you're like, I love your answers. They're just like, yeah, I don't really know, man. I'm just like, and that's almost like, go ahead.
Yeah, it's year 4 with this team, and I think year 5 or 6 in Alaska with dogs. So I mean, really, still very new to it and just kind of figuring out racing. So it's exciting to be still super new, and everything's really exciting to me. And that was first Iditarod, so everything was new. And this year's still going to be pretty new considering it's a new route for me.
And kind of on the lines of what Sean was just saying, I was curious, so clearly you are happy living in Alaska. Where do you see yourself? What does the next 5-10 years look like? Are you trying to live permanently and own property and have your own kennel? Are you happy with the Reddingtons? What's the big goal for you?
I mean, always the goal, ever since, being a kid is, have your own dog team. I think that's, anyone who wants to get into dogs, it's a goal. It's a lofty one, but in 5 years, we'll see. It's crazy what's come in the first 5 years. But I'm really, happy with the dogs I'm running right now and really committed to them and their bloodlines, and couldn't really, ask for a better group of dogs. But I think, Alaska is, where I want to be. Um, it's a lofty goal, and nowadays, the price of everything makes everything a lot harder. You can't just, work real hard a couple summers and have that, money to do that. So we're gonna keep going and see what doors open up for us, and just keep trying to improve there.
Nice.
Yeah, it is. It's expensive starting a dog team, and Reddingtons have it all. You have such an awesome opportunity with incredible dogs, and that's so cool that Ramey's about it. And this is a fun. This will be kind of wrapping up here, I guess. And you're like getting interviewed all the time during the Iditarod and during whatever race you're in, and then this time of year, is it nice? You must enjoy just like, I'm just by myself with the dogs. I'm putting in the work. No one's gonna know about this work I'm putting in. Really, they just assume I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. The camera's off. No one's paying attention, and this is when races are won. That's not. You can't. You can't just show up to the race like, oh, I'm gonna win. You got to put it in now.
Yeah. It's a nice time of the year, and seeing things shape up. I spent all summer with them this summer, which was fun. I worked in Juneau for almost 6 months with the dogs, and I had 54 of them down there. So
damn.
To have, the kind of lights off there too, you're seeing hundreds of people a day there and, showing off your dogs, but to have them, backwards, just kind of me, and, I'm actually getting to see them really, start to come together. And the way I like them to look now is it's exciting to start to see that, come back together again after, all summer together, kind of goofing off in the sun. And now I'm getting to see them really work together, which is fun.
Are you like do you schedule their like mileage, or is it like you're consulting Ramey, or it's just kind of you're like taking the Nick Petit style? Like,
I just, kind of do what I feel like doing that day. I go out. I don't know how far I'm really going to go. I have an idea. I know what they've been doing, kind of see what they're ready for. I've got 30 that I'm training right now and 10 dog teams on the sled. So, am I going to get out a team? Am I going to get out 2 teams today? Just trying to, manage all that. Kind of just see where the day takes me and do what feels right, I guess. I'm pretty laid back and not too serious about it all, I think.
Yeah, right on, man. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and taking all this time to talk with us. And, if you ever need help running one of those 10 dog teams, you holler at your boy. And, it's been really fun chatting with you.